What industry is shadier than most people realize? The Susan G. Komen Foundation. The funeral industry. There have been instances of funeral directors telling people that it's illegal to not embalm their loved one's body, when in fact it is not. The pet industry. I used to work in a store that would occasionally get illegal animals in. We'd be instructed to keep them in the bag, to only offer them to serious customers. Many of these would be herbs, lizards, snakes, and all of those fun guys. Towing industry is filled with thieves. Music industry, worse than the film industry. The sunglasses industry. The honey industry, Chinese imitation honey, bee thieves, illegal pesticides, plummeting prices and unfair competition from overseas. Jostens class rings. Here you have a company that swoops into your high school every year and you are forced to go to an assembly in the auditorium, where you are delivered an advertisement pitch from a salesman for a class ring that hundreds of teens then pressure their parents into buying for them, so they fit in, only to realize it's very not cool to wear in college or pretty much anywhere else after high school, and oh look, it's almost time to graduate. K-pop industry involves a lot of overworking and forcing people into debt. Mega churches when you consider the massive followers. The funeral industry. Check out Service Corp International. I only worked as an intern for 2 years for my state's funeral home and cemetery regulatory agency, and I never met a single person in the industry who wasn't a total sleazeball. I'm sure there are good ones out there, but many of them have been purchased by C and do everything in their power to squeeze every penny out of the grieving using manipulation and shaming tactics. It's disgusting and shady. Mary Kay, Lolaro, Avon, Young Living, any MLM. They're all deceitful, and in some cases, dangerous. I'm talking corporate here. The consultants are almost always victims. They're the ones that buy into the drinking essential oils is good for you thing become dangerous. Printing. Let's say you want to get business cards printed for your company. You shop online and find a print house offering a pretty good deal. You call them up, schedule when you'd like your cards, and get a price quote. What you don't know is that there most likely is not a single press in the building of the print house you just dealt with. Instead, they have outsourced the prints to another print house to print for them. This chain of false print houses can go pretty deep. I work at an actual print house, a bunch of presses in a warehouse, doing art and data setup for mailing jobs. There's sometimes a chain of up to 10 print houses between the actual customer and us. Textbooks. I've had a professor that wrote his own textbook and his wife made a printing company that printed them. Then they require them for class. They also make changes every few years in the questions, so we can't reuse them. TLDR, all the industries. The painting industry is really fricked up. There's a lot of competition for high price jobs. A single job can be tens of thousands of dollars. Everyone's poaching employees, trying to steal confidential pricing information. All that jazz. We once caught a major retail company repackaging and reselling illegal foreign drywall. That's not even getting into safety standards. No one's really using the correct safety equipment. People are inhaling crap that gives you cancer or tears up your lungs or causes brain damage. We know it's bad for us, but if your boss won't give you a mask and you need to make rent, what are you going to do? A lot of painters have poor English skills or criminal records, so they can't just up and find a job elsewhere. I think a long-term study on the lifespan of painters and paint store employees would be very, very interesting. Yelp. If you don't pay them, they manipulate your restraint to make it look like you have a lower rating than you actually do. They will also call you if you get a bad review and ask for money in exchange for taking it down. The worst part is that there isn't even a way to get your establishment off their website. Frick them. Quiznos. I forgot where I read this, but I copied it and emailed it to my father when he was considering getting into a Quiznos franchise. I'm not sure how old this is, or if it's still the way they are doing it, but it made sure I will never visit one again. Former manager of a Quiznos here. I can answer this question. Suit up. You're not gonna like it. Quiznos is the biggest, barely legal pyramid scheme I have ever witnessed. It's freaking nefarious genius. Something like 90% of new Quiznos franchises go out of business within 3 years because a cooperation makes more money off of a new startup than they do off of a functioning business. Corporate literally makes more money off a franchise going bankrupt than they do off a successful business. Let's talk about Bob and Randy, whose names have not been changed because they are guilty as frig. Bob and Randy are, or at least were in the early 2000s, the regional managers of Quiznos franchises in the Southwest, Arkansas/Oklahoma/Texas area. Bob and Randy were some crafty sleaze buckets who would come in with videos and marketing materials and graphs about how the business worked, how to make profits, and literally I crap you not almost identical money making charts as you see with all the other make your millions direct marketing scams. Found that out later. They then would lease to you the proprietary equipment needed to start your business, and you would buy in for an incredibly low price. You could literally start 3 franchises for what it would normally cost to buy one of most other FF chains. You would pay small fees for the brand new equipment, and in 18 months, you'd own it. Then it was just the food delivery and standard franchise fees. Bob and Randy made it sound stupid not to invest, and you left literally wondering why no one else freaking was doing this. It was so easy. There was a reason. We'll put Bob and Randy on hold for a second. We'll get back to them. My friend's family had made a lot of money starting a used car lot in a bustling suburban area. They made a killing buying used cars, fixing them up, and selling them for lower than almost any other dealer. They sold the business for a smooth couple million, and were looking for something to invest their money in for longer term returns with less dirty work. Quiznos looked good and their son and I, good friends, signed on to manage their stores. We met co-managing a pizza franchise. We picked some pretty good spots and had customers coming in like crazy, and we were selling a lot of product with lines sometimes out the door. But almost immediately things started to look crappy. The prices they charged for the food were literally only a few cents less per serving than the mandated prices we had to charge on the store. The small, reasonable fees for the equipment were of course smaller than buying it outright, but looking on the market, you could have bought as good or better equipment for half what you wound up paying to cooperate. But you had to have Quiznos equipment, and you had to pay a monthly franchise fee, which isn't unusual in the business, but the fees were freaking absurd. So, inevitably, after 4-5 months your business starts to struggle. Then, Bob and Randy come and do a store inspection. And holy crap, those awesome, friendly, funny guys turn into Gotham ring wraiths and will dock you for a smudge on the paint, a loose screw on the door, a slightly wobbly table, whatever. This reduces your corporate store rating. What's a store rating? Well, we didn't know either. Your store rating is a metric they use to determine how well you are holding up the brand image. That was never fricking mentioned until Bob and Randy showed up. They give you 6 weeks to correct the issues and then show back up. They dock you on a whole bunch of other crap and your rating drops. If you get below a certain score, I don't remember what horse crap they lied to us, then they can stop delivering product to your store. In your contract, you signed that you would only buy product from Quiznos for brand consistency, or what the frick ever, which seems perfectly reasonable at the time. A Big Mac is a Big Mac for a reason. So you work your asses off to keep the store in good shape, with Bob and Randy popping up and slowly reducing your store rating. But sometimes you get a little better, but you never get quite as good as you were a time or two before last. Meanwhile, you're bleeding money on the fees and margins, constantly struggling between wanting to get the frick out and thinking you can make the store work. Eventually though, literally no matter what you do, your store rating drops below the minimum rating. So Bob and Randy issue a stop order on your store. You are legally forbidden from buying elsewhere, and the fees are bleeding you dry. But, hey, you own your equipment now. You can sell that and get some money back after you close your doors and declare bankruptcy. Why would anyone buy your used equipment, tainted with store failure, when Bob and Randy will sell them brand new equipment for only a small monthly fee? So about $1 million down after 2 years slowly bleeding money on 3 stores. My friend's parents wised the frick up and got out. I went on to other things and my pal helped his parents start up a small deli. Many of our old customers found out about the new place, and after a few months, business was booming. They were incredibly freaking lucky that they got out when they did, and that they were able to make something else work. In the decade or so since, about 3-4 dozen Quiznos have sprung up and died out in our little suburban area. About 3-4 dozen families have had their lives freaking turned upside down, and no doubt financially ruined. Seriously. Frick Quiznos, frick Bob and Randy, and frick Quiznos cooperate freaking bullcrap pyramid scheme. When they go down, I'll spit on their freaking graves, and then crap on it, and then spit on the crap. I hope they get pancreatic cancer and slowly die over years of excruciating pain. Nothing I can think of is bad enough for them. Game development pays beans while requiring one of the largest knowledges out of any programming related field, but is okay because they are making their passion. Pergolas. It doesn't look like it will create much shade with its very open design, but they do. Dietary supplements. They charge a lot of money for things that either don't do anything, or that your body does need in small amounts that you're already getting from food. At the risk of sounding unpatriotic, government is pretty shady. Eminem's record label, very shady. The wedding industry, as soon as there's that word drifting around, all costs suddenly get multiplied by 2 for no good reason. App economy as a whole. Almost each app require more and more access to our personal data, contacts, photo, credit card. We allow it not knowing what their aim can be. Hotel industry. From previously working at one, always check your bill and never trust that management will solve major problems. They seem to accidentally double charge people and businesses for stays and only refund when they wouldn't go away. The same with hotel bars. The mattress industry. Vector marketing. Selling horses. My uncle's girlfriend is really into dressage and went to Europe to look at a horse. She rode it and was extremely satisfied and understandably made the purchase. Fast forward a couple months and she's finding out this horse had a critical hip injury that was masked by steroids or something. She can still ride the horse on trails, but beyond that, RIP 600k. The used boating industry. Anytime you buy a used boat, get a good / reputable surveyor to look at it first. It might cost a fraction of the boat itself, but it'll keep you from getting a complete death trap or rotting piece of junk. I see things hidden in / on boats all the time. The moving industry. When you are getting quotes for moving, the salespeople will come over and say stuff like 4 rooms equals $2,000. Then when you want your stuff back, they start holding your items hostage for more money that agreed upon. You will have almost no choice but to pay, because they are also going to start charging you storage fees. This is illegal, but you're not going to get the authorities to help you unless you have some kind of in with them. However, about 10 years the cops arrested an entire moving company on Cape Cod for doing this. The reason the cops stepped up in this case is the company had done this to every single client they ever had. The cemetery industry can be shady. Customers pay premium prices for choice locations or plots near notable people that have been buried there. Not sure if this is widely known, but the tourism industry is pretty shady, and this shocked me. My mom has always said she wanted us to see some of the world at least once, so she planned a vacation to Europe last summer to London, Paris, and Rome, the works. When we were in France touring Versailles, we were shuffling around in line looking for the premium pass line, or whatever it was called. We couldn't find anything of the sort, so we waited and got in normally. My mom went up to one of the staff and asked her what the deal was. Turns out the premium pass didn't exist. It was sold by third-party companies looking to make easy money off impatient tourists. Really an eye-opener for me. Charity. Healthcare. Automotive service. A lot of places pressure their techs and customer service people with quotas, so the customer gets screwed. Also, a lot of services you can perform yourself quite easily. Changing a headlight, for example, is incredibly simple on most vehicles. That being said, I've also worked with a lot of honest, trustworthy people in the industry. It mostly depends on the company. I wouldn't call it an industry, but my best friend was Mormon, and she will testify in court that the whole thing is a giant cult. To anyone who asks why, I will tell you what she told me. Getting out of the church is hell. If you are a long-time member, they keep all your information and repeatedly try to contact you to get you to come back, like calling, emailing, mailing, texting, and even coming to your door. And even once you do leave, anyone you were friends with will either never speak to you again or constantly try and get you to come back, so far as to derail normal conversations and turning into something about church. Took her 3 solid years to get out and for them to leave her alone. Keep in mind she is 19 and they are harassing her. I didn't quite believe until she ran into an old church buddy and gave this girl her cell phone number because she seemed nice and didn't bring up the church. Motherfricker gave her number to the pastor or whatever and he starts calling her. My friend came over in tears because she was afraid to answer the phone. When the phone rang again, I picked it up and pretended to be a wrong number. He called her 3 times a week for a month before he quit, and every opportunity I would answer the phone and tell him he had the wrong number, scared to think what would have happened to her if she stayed there. Automotive sales and service. Also, consumer computer repair. Locksmiths. I've had one ask for $400 plus to open a door. I promptly kicked it down and replaced it for less, but not before being told he could do it for $50 under the table. Water apparently. Looking at you, Nestle. All ISPs, the internet and cable providers, who are monopolies in most locations BC of mergers and acquisitions, and their subsequent price fixing. The fashion industry. The umbrella industry. Surprisingly shady. Staffing industry / firms. Most of them don't even have many openings. They are trying to build a pipeline of candidates in case they get a position and that matches the candidate's background. How the hell has no one said insurance, health, life, supplemental, pet, car, all the insurance? Or maybe it's because everyone realizes it's shady and doesn't even garner a mention. Also diamonds. The music industry is a big one. A lot of strange and pretty unethical things happen in that one. Most people don't notice it though, because they don't ever look behind the scenes. But if you're a skeptic like me and doubt what I'm saying, just go watch a few interviews of some of your favorite artists talk about their labels, and I promise you'll start to notice things. The food industry. Journal publication. Researchers paid to publish the research they fund themselves, and pay it again to read it. This totally makes sense 100 years ago when words are literally pressed on paper, binded into physical books and manually distributed across the country. But in 2018 I'm still extorted my money to post a PDF on internet. Academia. HR/human resources. In large companies they can create havoc. People assume they are there to support employees, but just the opposite, they exist to enforce company policies and take a stance in favor of the firm, not the employee. People say go to ours if you have a problem. That's the worst place you can go, since they document everything, and if there's any chance you have any kind of complaint, it will turn out in their minds to be your fault. Financial advising / wealth management. Under the Obama administration, they were going to be required to act as fiduciaries of their clients, which would mean they couldn't base recommendations on what made them the most in fees, only what was best for the client. They fought back, and the rule was repealed under the current administration. I think the better question would be, what industry is not shady? Many licensed professions have this issue. For example, the dental profession. It is in their interest to identify as many problems as possible. You have the beginnings of a cavity here. Translation: you have teeth. We better fill that in just to be safe. Need a few extra bucks. Just be a little more aggressive on the fillings. This is less a problem of dishonest dentists and more a problem of how the industry is structured. Diagnosis should not be handled by the same company that gets paid to do the work. It's a classic blunder in the world of fraud protection. A parallel would be giving your credit card to a company and then letting them decide what you're going to buy. Makes no sense at all. Advertising, lies, elaborations, downright cheating and spreading misinformation, which is actually against the law in every country but no one gives a crap. Not an industry really, a company. Nestle is one of the worst companies ever. In a lot of places around the world, mostly places that don't have great access to clean water, They sell bottled water. All good and well, right? Until they supply Central African women with enough baby formula to let their milk ducts dry up, and the only way they can administer the baby formula is with their clean bottled water. So they don't have breast milk for their babies. They've run out of formula for their babies, and Nestle knows that their way is the only way to feed these babies anymore. These women don't have enough money to buy Nestle's clean water. The desperate mothers and the mothers who have any money at all are buying the baby formula, only to have to mix it with their normal dirty water, which makes their babies sick. So the babies who don't die of starvation get sick from the water, and all the while Nestle knew this would happen because they wanted mothers to be reliant on them for their baby's food. Hoss not going to go to the end of the earth with all their resources for their baby, right? Nestle literally started this knowing babies would die. Nestle are baby killers. And the problem is that Nestle is such a large company that owns so many other companies that it's actually extremely difficult to boycott them. The religion industry. Higher education. Many college professors are actually part-time contingent instructors who get very little pay, sometimes even minimum wage. No benefits. And no job security. Your tuition money, for the most part, isn't paying for the teaching. You're paying for administrators and fancy amenities like that new on-campus rec center. Umbrella Corp. They are known to research bioweapons, well documented in a 7-episode series. The mental health field industry. I've worked in mental health for 2+ years, and I've seen patients get admitted for behavioral issues, get treated, and when it's almost time for their discharge, the doctors take them off of their meds completely and extend their stay just to get more money. I've seen this happen with adults and kids. Colleges/student loans. They are just big business now. Neither care about you actually going to school. They just want your money and will do whatever they can to make it happen. Colleges are a waste of time if you aren't in a skill/lawyer/doctor. They don't teach anybody how to survive in the real world. Animation industry. The working conditions suck in America, and I can only imagine what the studios are like overseas, where most of the work is outsourced to. Autism Speaks needs to burn in a freaking fire. Oh, and take Susan G. Komen with them.